Let's talk about React. Does anyone know what React is? Anyone? No one? No one has heard about React? It's a library. Fantastic. It's a library. Some people say, no, it's not a library, it's a framework. Yeah, there are big fights on the internet. It's not a framework. It's not a framework. It's a library. It goes beyond the scope of the session. Yeah? But if you go to a job interview and the very first thing you say is React is a framework, it's not a good starting point, right? First impression only happens once. So React is a library. Yeah? Do you know who looks after React? Facebook. Yeah, careful. Do you know now there is a sort of a common understanding, at least in the West, that React is the king of JavaScript. In other words, if you want to build a powerful application, you need to use React. Yeah? But that hasn't been like that, yeah, in the past. So does anyone know who was the former king of JavaScript? Wrong, not jQuery. Angular, correct. Angular. So starting from summer 2011 to 2014, more or less, Angular was the king of JavaScript. And Angular was a framework because it was a huge library, a huge component that you got married to, and then you had to do everything according to his guidelines. Yeah? React is way more flexible. Does anyone know who look after and still looking after Angular? Google, yeah. So they are not happy that Facebook got the cake, yeah. So that's about the past, but what about the future? Does anyone know what's the main rival of React today? Vue, correct. And who looks after Vue? Interesting, yeah? Interesting. JavaScript was created in 1995, which means it's a relatively recent programming language. Does anyone know how long the creator of JavaScript needed to write the first version? 10 days, yeah? It's controversial. Some people say 10 days, some people say it's 2 weeks. It depends whether we count the weekends or not, right? We don't really know if the guy worked on Saturday and Sunday, but doesn't matter, right? Couple of weeks, yeah? Let's be a bit flexible on that. Yes, so since 1995, the Americans had the control on JavaScript. Yeah? JavaScript has been my only focus starting from 2002. I got 17 years of experience working with JavaScript. Yeah? I've been participating in many international conferences about JavaScript. And now the question is, why JavaScript is so popular? Do you think is it any easier to learn? Is it more performant? Is it any faster? Why is it so damn popular, JavaScript?
Because it's a language of the web. And you can use the front end and back end as well.
Correct. So in 1995, if you are on your 30s or even 40s, you will remember that even though internet wasn't that popular, we already had internet, right? Which was the most important web browser in 1995?
Explorer.
Wrong. Netscape, correct. In 1995, no one cared about the web, but JavaScript was the only language to get married to the web browser. Yeah? Because of that, the web has evolved that much that now everyone has a web browser everywhere. And as a side effect, everyone has JavaScript everywhere. JavaScript is the only programming language in the world. There is nothing else apart from JavaScript that gives you the opportunity to create an app once and deliver it to multiple devices. Yeah? Mobile, tablet, desktop, smartwatches. Yeah? Without JavaScript, it's a pain in the ass. I've been working for multi-billion companies where they had 10 teams to build the same feature. That doesn't scale. This is changing quickly. Yeah? Some people think Python is the most programming language in the world. Not true. Don't trust that person. Yeah? It's JavaScript. Of course, yeah, Python is very popular, but nothing compares to JavaScript. And the gap increases year after year, to the point that according to GitHub, do you know what GitHub is? It's the Bible of coding. Yeah? No one knows more about coding than GitHub. It's where all the code is in the world, right? 97%. According to GitHub, JavaScript is more popular than top 2 and 3 combined, Python and Java. Huge slice of the cake for JavaScript. Yeah? All right, after this boring introduction, let's talk about React. So I'm assuming you did that already as part of the preparation video. If not, let me quickly go through the steps to bootstrap a React application, right? So Facebook realized that preparing an app was more complicated over time. In the 90s, it was right-click, new file, index.js. Today, you need to set up a lot of dependencies. Because of that, Facebook in 2014 introduced a tool called Create React App, which is a command line tool to bootstrap, to prepare React applications easily, very easily, right? So the only thing we need to do to start working with the amazing world of React is go to a terminal, which is this classic black window with white text on top of it, yeah, and type the following command. How to open a terminal? It depends. If you're a Mac user, there is an app called Terminal. If you're a Windows user, there is an app called PowerShell. And if you are using Linux, I'm sure you know how to do it. So, look what I'm typing. Create dash React dash app space. Right, let me zoom it a bit. Probably more, right? Sorry, let me add some break lines. Here you go. Not sure you can see the screen. More or less, right? I'm taking create React app, space, create, correct. I did on purpose because you were paying attention, right? Create React app, space, and the name of your app. What that implies? That implies that we are going to have a new folder in your system with all the files and all the components associated to that very new app. So, what are we going to build today? To be honest, I don't care. We can talk about whatever topic you want. The important thing is to learn how to deal with React. I'll present you my app. You are welcome to talk about the same topic or to talk about a different topic. So I would like to talk about politicians, yeah, a bit controversial, but why not? So I'm going to create an app called Top Characters. Yeah? Try to avoid having spaces on the name of the app. You know, should work, but that's a bit controversial. So top dash or top hyphen characters, and I'll press enter. And look at what happened now. Now Facebook is installing all the dependencies, and hopefully only the dependencies that we need to start dealing with React. Yeah? So you can see many things are being downloaded. We don't really care. This is a black box. This is a black box. We leave Facebook to pull the dependencies for us. But essentially, it's all about React. Yeah? This process may take maybe a couple of minutes, depending on the network and everything, but eventually it will work. A new React application needs about 350 megs of space in your hard drive, which is a lot. Yeah? It's a lot. If you remember in the 90s, when we play video games, you play Street Fighter in 10 megabytes, and you had, you know, you can enjoy the game for 2 years. Now we need 350 megs just for literally nothing. But hey, now hard drive is cheap, right? So we can afford that. Cool. Once the process is done, you may have noticed the message. We tend to ignore the messages, but in some cases are very powerful. This message is very sexy. It says, we suggest that you begin by typing, look, cd, and then the name of the app. That's a way to drill down, to jump into the folder that we have created. So then let's do it. Cd top characters. And then, depending on whether you have yarn or npm, yeah, it will tell you to run either yarn start or npm start. Both yarn and npm are ways to install packages in your system. Yeah? It goes beyond the scope of the session to compare them. But anyway, both are equally valid for the scope of this session. All right, so let me type yarn start and let's see what happened. Let's see what happened. Look, it automatically opened a new tab in my browser. Probably you cannot see that. Let me try to zoom it out a bit. You can see on top, you see on top, something is going on, and hopefully at some point, you see, something happened, and look, boom. If you got that logo, that means your laptop is completely ready. Yeah, that's important. A friend of mine told me the other day, are you watching Chernobyl? I say, no, this is not Chernobyl. That's the React logo, in case that's the first thing you see that, right? So that's a smoke test. That's a way to prove that you can start dealing with React. If you don't get that logo, you cannot go any further. We need to figure out why this is happening, yeah? All right, assuming you got that logo, it could happen now or maybe tomorrow, doesn't matter. Let's again read the message. Edit source app.js and save to reload. That's a bit controversial. Where is that file? It's not obvious, right? It's not obvious. Because of that, the next thing I would like to do is to open a code editor. Yeah, we need a text editor to code. Yeah. So which one will we use today? Do you have any particular preference? Do you know any text editor, any code editor? VS Code, Sublime, Beam, you know, WebStorm. You see, there are many. Yeah, I would like, first of all, to tell you that I'm not very opinionated. In other words, if you start working as a developer, you may see that as part of your team, everyone has a different IDE. Yeah, everyone may have a different sexual appetite. Everyone may have a different IDE, right? That's fine. The important thing about coding is the result. Yeah, how you manage to build that result doesn't matter. Yeah, all right. However, I would like to recommend you what, in my opinion, and what, according to 51% of the coding community, is the best IDE in the world. And this is VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Yeah? Why Visual Studio Code? Can anyone give me a reason why Visual Studio Code is such a fantastic editor? Go for it.
It's backed up by Microsoft.
Correct. It's backed up by Microsoft. There is a big company supporting it. Apart from that, it's open source. I'm sure you've heard about open source, right? People can contribute to it. Yeah? You got a new release every month, so it's always up to date. And above everything else, to me, the main thing is it's written in JavaScript. And that proves that today, in 2019, JavaScript not only runs on a web browser, it runs as a native app. I'm sure you have an Android or an iOS. I'm convinced that some of the apps that you use on your smartphone are built on JavaScript, even though you don't get the feeling they are JavaScript, but they are JavaScript. So today, I would like to use Visual Studio Code. And interestingly, I got my Visual Studio Code open on the other window, so let me try to drag it down, which could be a bit challenging. That happens sometimes with the screen. All right. Yeah. Right, let me try to find my VS Code. Right, for the time being, just make sure that you open it and try to open it again. Right, this thing happens when you have more than one screen open at the same time. Right, I don't know where my Visual Studio Code. One of the things I like about live coding is that problems may happen. Yeah, I don't really believe on this sort of classic tools where everything works perfect, because that's not real. Even if you're a really good developer, problem may happen. The important thing is to see how to fix them. How do I fix that problem? Look, I got my VS Code, but I cannot see it anywhere. I like to disconnect the second screen, as you can see now. I like to open it, wherever it is. I found it, and because I found it, I like to connect the screen again. And let's see if it's displayed now. Let's wait a second. Hey, oh, all right, still on the other screen. Oh, that's a bit unfortunate. All right, so then let me change the settings. That's a Mac thingy, right? But that may happen. Screens, displays. All right, I got my Visual Studio Code, finally. You see? Let me check, I'm still recording the session. It's hard to tell. Well, let's assume it still works, right? Cannot tell you at the moment. Anyway, I got my Visual Studio Code. I'll zoom it a bit. When you open Visual Studio Code, the first thing you need to do is to open the project. Remember, the project is simply a folder in your system. So we need to find where that folder is, and that will depend on your system. You will see a link on the left-hand side that says Open Folder, or alternatively, you can go to File, Open, right? As the same thing. So I will click on Open, and now I need to navigate through my system to find where my folder is. If you are a Windows user, by default, it will be in C:/users/ your username, for instance, sexyboy19, / the name of the folder, right? If you are a Mac user, it will be probably on your home directory, something like that, right? So we really need to figure out, that's important, where the folder got created. In my particular case, I found it here, right? So I'll select the folder and I'll click Open. And then, after opening the project, with what we'll see, hopefully, is that the project will open. Let me remark, hopefully. Yeah. Again, these things sometimes happen. I'm clicking in Open Folder, but it doesn't work. No problem at all. I'll kill Visual Studio, and I'll try again. Right. I think my Mac had better days, because now I cannot even open Visual Studio. But let me try. Right, it finally worked, right? Again, when something doesn't work, restart it. Yeah? It's been like that for 50 years. All right. Guys, could we please close the door if you don't mind? It's a bit, yes, thank you. All right, I hope everyone has the project open. Thank you, Patrick. Everyone has the project open in Visual Studio. Do you remember the message we got on the browser? Let me open it again for you. Yeah, you see the message. Edit source app.js and save to reload. That means I'm expecting to open that file. You see on the left-hand side of VS Code, you got the folder structure. That's a classic folder structure in React. So I'm expected to open src and then app.js, you see. And now look what we got. That file, let me zoom it a bit. You see the file? This is the source code that generates that view. Source code, result, results, source code. Can anyone tell me which language is that? HTML. Interesting. Does anyone disagree on that? JSX. Is it the same thing? It's mixed. Yeah? That's interesting. One of the reasons why React became so popular is not because of the logo. It's because it combines very efficiently two unrelated worlds, HTML and JavaScript. You can see that file, it's a JavaScript file in reality. Look on top, not sure, yeah, you can see that. You see the name of the file, the extension, .js. It's JavaScript. However, the content of the file is a mix of JavaScript and HTML, chicken mayo, yeah? And because of that, it's very easy to build user interfaces because we don't need to mess around with a JavaScript file and an HTML file and going back and forth. Everything is in one central place, yeah? And of course, we can reuse that piece of code. You know, when you want to go on holidays and you go to Ryanair.com, you need to select the dates. When do you want to fly and when do you want to return? You got two date pickers, yeah? You select the date on the calendar. In reality, it's the same component. It's the same mechanism replicated twice. So that's the main principle about React. We can build a component and then we can reuse that component, which is pretty sexy. So let's do something. Look at that line. Edit source app and say to reload. Let me change that line to welcome to top characters. As soon as I save the file, look at what happened. The browser automatically picked the changes. I didn't even have to reload the browser. That may sound natural to you, but that's something pretty new and unique. Yeah? I had to press the refresh button probably hundreds of thousands of times in my life. Not anymore, right? So I really appreciate this sort of tiny improvements. This is modern coding. You don't have to refresh the browser anymore. And I'll tell you more. If we want to build the next multi-billion app, probably we don't want to have the Chernobyl icon turning around on the screen, right? We want to build something from scratch, from zero, from the ground up. How do we do that? Well, I would like to clear my canvas. I would like to delete pretty much everything. So I will delete everything from line number 8 to line number 21. Everything apart from the main div. Look, you see? I'm deleting everything, and now I can type welcome to top characters app. And what happened if I go back to my browser? Let's have a look. Look, we got the title on top. I hope you agree that's a much better starting point. Yeah? If you want to paint something, you want to start from a blank canvas. That's pretty much the same story. That title, it's there, but it's a bit small. How can we make a title bigger, guys, on HTML? H1, I love it. Let's surround our title with H1. And let's feel the difference. Much better, right? Looks bolder now, stronger. All right, so once we got the title, let's start adding content to our application. I would like to display a list of politicians with the name and a picture. Let's start with Mr. Johnson. So I'm going to Google, so this is completely unrelated to React. Yeah, I'm just going to Google, and I'm searching Boris Johnson. Feel free to select a different character, of course. And I'll go to Google Images, and I'll just select a random picture of this guy, right? And then what's next? I have to download the image. In other words, I would like to show you how to display an image with React. I'll do right-click, save image as, and now I need to save my image inside of my project. So once again, we need to figure out where the project is. Remember that generally speaking, it will be in your home directory. So in my particular case, I found it. And something important, guys. Anytime you create a new file, a new component, you need to save it into the SRC, into the source folder. If you try to save it outside, React will complain. So remember to save it into the SRC folder. And one more thing, remember to bring an appropriate name, because we'll have to refer to it. So I'll call the image Boris. All right, so I got my Boris image downloaded. Actually, you will see that the image is listed on the left-hand side. So, can anyone tell me how can I display an image with React? No? All right, we need to do two things to display an image with React. The very first one is we need to import the image. This is a common practice in modern JavaScript. Yeah? If you have heard about things like ES6, that tends to refer to modern JavaScript. Does anyone know who looks after JavaScript? Is it Facebook? Is it Google? Is it Donald Trump? Who decides the new features of JavaScript? ES, that's the standard. But who defines the standard? It's not the World Wide Web. It's the TC39. TC39. That's a group of Swiss people based somewhere in the mountains. Probably not. Probably they are on an average WeWork building. But these guys, they decide the future of JavaScript. Yeah? The future of JavaScript evolves, obviously. And every year they bring new features. Every July, that means now, they release a new spec of the standard. Yeah? And now, thankfully, they listen to the community. Some of the new and shiny features of JavaScript are there because someone proposed them, the community liked it, and then they are part of the standard, which is absolutely fabulous, right? All right, so according to the modern web standards, we need to import the image. Look at how we import the image. Import, then the name of the image. It doesn't matter what we type next. But just for semantics reasons, let's type here Boris. And the next bit is where that image is. We need to type from, space, and with quotes, single or double quotes, that's up to you, the location of the image. In my particular case, my image, you can see, is on the same folder as my file. I'm working with app.js, my file Boris is on the same folder. Does anyone know how to refer to a file in the same folder? No. Dot slash, correct. You see, with dot slash, you tell React, hey, my resource, my file, my sexy picture of Boris Johnson is on the same folder as the current one. And now I can type the name of the image. That's important to match it, obviously. Boris dot, I don't remember the extension. It was WebP, right? So Boris dot WebP. All right, so we got the image imported. However,
It's the format of the image imported getting the JPEG file.
yeah, the format of the image should be supported by your web browser. Yeah. Generally speaking, images could be PNG, could be JPEG, could be even BMP, could be GIF. Yeah. But now we got a new format. I think this was proposed by Google, right, some years ago, WebP, which is supposed to be more efficient. It doesn't matter. As far as it gets displayed, we are happy with that. All right. Why Boris is not displayed on my white screen? Can anyone tell me, please? Say again? Correct. Look at the body. We don't have any reference to the image. So we've satisfied the first part, which is please import the image, make it available if you accept the expression. But now we need to decide where do we want to display it. How do we display images in HTML, guys? href. Not very happy about that. Image tag, correct. Image tag, and then what? Source. How do you type source? src. Be careful. I think the main source of frustration with junior developers after spending 3 months trying to solve a problem is because instead of src, they type scr. So be careful with that silly mistake. src, right? And now we spot the first difference between HTML and React HTML-ish code. This is non-standard in HTML. Look at the brackets. You see curly brackets. Curly brackets, they are not supported in HTML, but they are supported in React. And that's the way we tell React, hey, inside of the brackets, I'm going to refer to a variable. Can anyone tell me the name of the variable I want to refer to? Boris. Why Boris? Correct, because it's the name we declare here. You see line number 2, Boris, that's the container, that's the basket where Boris is. So now we can display it, src Boris, right? And now we can close the tag. Let's see if now we got Boris displayed. Here you go. Not bad, right? We got our first character. Let me display the name of Boris. Look at what I'm doing. Because probably everyone knows Boris, but just in case, look at what I'm doing. I'm adding a div. I'll leave Boris inside of the div, and above it, I will display his name, Boris Johnson, something like that, right? So hopefully, well, it looks a bit dodgy, right? It's not even readable, but let's wrap the name of Boris within a div. Now, all right, maybe the UX department of our multi-billion project will complain, but at least, technically speaking, we got the name of our guy on the screen, right? All right, now let's replicate the process with a different character. Look at what I'm doing. Let me copy and paste it, you see? So now, as you will imagine, I will have Boris twice. We can reuse images, of course, right? But I don't want to get Boris twice. I may have a stomach issue. So let's find a new character. Let's talk about his friend, of course, Donald. So let's do the same thing. Let's find an image of Donald, let's download it, and let's refer to it. Coding is about repeating the same thing again and again, but we need to master that process. Back to our friend Google. Let's type Donald Trump, and then let's take the first picture we find about him. Whatever, this one, right? Same thing, right click, save image as Donald, same folder, and then you see it's the same process. So I copy the import instead of Boris. Now I want to import Donald from Donald. Be careful with the extension, guys. You can see in my particular case, Donald is a JPG, it's a different format. We need to match not only the name of the image, but also the extension, JPG. And now, that's the same thing, right? We replace image Boris with image Donald. Does it make sense? Yeah? Let's see if it works. Back to our application. And yeah, it works. Right? It does work. I got a question for you guys. Can I rename any of these guys? Can I rename Boris with Brexit? You see, I renamed Boris on line number 2 and also on line number 12. Will it work or not? It will be probably the only scenario where the Brexit will work as expected. Here you go. We still got our friend, right? In other words, the name of the variable is not that relevant. Yeah? As far as it's consistent, it will work. However, what do you think? If you're working with a junior developer, would you accept as part of a code review process that variable name or not? Do you think if I call that variable name Brexit is good or bad, and why? Why bad? Correct. Coding, the most complicated aspect of coding is about the semantics. Yeah? Writing code may be difficult, but reading code is even more difficult. And this is one of the main goals of our bootcamp. We make sure our students create readable standard code. So Brexit is not a meaningful variable name for that person. So let's stick to Boris. All right. And now, tell me you will decide, based on democracy principles, the third character of our application. Any suggestion?
Angela Merkel.
Angela Merkel, fantastic. Let's do that. Let's go to Google and let's search Angela Merkel and let's find an image of Merkel. Does anyone know that Merkel still lives on the same flat, 90 square meter flat she lived when she was a student, right? In Germany, which is pretty descriptive. All right, so Merkel. Let's download the image to the SRC folder, and again, the same process. We copy the import, Angela from, I think we call it Merkel. Let me have a look. Yeah, merkel.jpg, and finally, we refer to her, Angela Merkel, with capital, if you don't mind, and then the name of the image. You see, we've got the 3 characters one after the other. Will it work? Let's have a look. Boris, Donald, and Angela. It does work, right? You can see the process. However, what happens if our UX department complains about the usability? Yeah? Because they believe that users may struggle to read the name of the character, especially if they are not very popular. The name is very small, they need to zoom. Yeah? We're forcing our customers to do a bit of pitching, right? Which is not good. How can we increase the font size of the character names in HTML? All right, you remember we use an H1 to increase the size of our title, so we can use, for instance, H2 to change the size of the character names, and it will probably satisfy the appetite of the UX department. Let's have a look. Much better, right? They are happy. But what happens if instead of 3 characters, we have 3,000? Are we going to manually change the size of every character 3,000 times? Probably not, right? And this is the second reason why React became so popular, because we can create what they call components. A component is a piece of code that we can reuse multiple times. And because we can reuse it, that means that we can apply the changes once and they will propagate everywhere, simplifying the process of updating our code. Let's create our very first React component. There are different ways to create React components. As part of the bootcamp, we create very complex components. But for today, let's start with the fundamentals. A React component is as simple as a JavaScript function. If you don't really know what a JavaScript function is, I would like to invite you to our next Intro to JavaScript session running next week, I believe. Yeah, it's pretty much sold out, but as part of that session, we'll explain how to deal with the basics of JavaScript. For now, to write a JavaScript function, we type function and then the name of the component. So let me call that character. Please note that the function starts with capital. You see? It's capital C, big C. This is a recommendation in the React world. Whenever your function represents a component, you should name it with a capital. Yeah? This is what we call styling. There are different style guides. There are different opinions. This is not rocket science. Does anyone know who defines the standards or the style guides of coding, for instance, about JavaScript? Who decides what's the best way of coding with JavaScript? No? No? No, they are not opinionated. So, the Swiss guys, they declare the basic rules. But how do you use these rules? That goes beyond of the scope of their efforts. They are very busy going up and down the mountains, right? So who does that? Who is saying, oh, let me rephrase that. If I create a variable in JavaScript, let me call the variable hard Brexit. Right? Can anyone tell me that syntax? What's the name of that case? It is camel case, that's correct. Why camel case? Because it looks like it's a camel, right? You see, it goes up and down. And what happens if you come from the PHP world and you do that? What's the name of that syntax? That's a snake case, correct? Because it goes up and down like a snake, right? Sort of. And what happens if I got camel case starting with a capital? What's the name of that case? Ooh, not that. That's Pascal case, correct? It's Pascal case. Because Pascal was the first programming language a long time ago to use it. And what happened, and this is the only case, all these cases are valid in JavaScript. However, I'm sure you've seen that, with a hyphen in between. Look, VS Code is complaining, you see, wrong. This is not valid in JavaScript. But it is valid in other languages. So what's the name of that case? I give you two options. One if you are below 35 years old, and one if you are above 35 years old. No one? Right. If you are a senior developer with 200 years of experience, you will say that this is Lisp case. Lisp, because Lisp was the first programming language to make it popular. However, if you go to Stack Overflow and you argue with millennials, you will feel very weird, right? Talking about Lisp case, because they may not have heard about it. They like to call it kebab case, which is more, shortage friendly. So with kebab case, why? Because this looks like the blade that goes through the meat, right? So that's the way that syntax is. So anyway, we got different alternatives. In JavaScript, the preferred approach is that one, which is camel. But why? Why? Who decides that? It's not TC39, it's not Facebook. Who does that? Developer communities. Not really. This is going to be surprising. I'm sure no one, well, you may know that, but if you don't know that, you may be skeptical. It's, listen, Airbnb. You know Airbnb? Yeah, when you want to go to Barcelona to share a flat with 12 people. So these guys decide these things. Yeah. Why? Because you go to Google style guide. They propose